Hi everyone, it's Claire here. I've got a quick video for you today. So following on from the Land Registry data analysis video I did yesterday, I had a few questions back and one of them was about yield and how I look at yield and analyse it. So I just wanted to share a few ideas on that and just do a quick table in Excel which I use when I'm looking at deals that hopefully you'll be able to build for yourself and use when you look at potential acquisitions as well. So first of all, what is yield? Yield is basically an annual measure of the return on your investment. So there's two ways of measuring this. One of them is gross yield and one of them is net yield. Now gross yield is your annual gross rent divided by the purchase cost. So this is an optimistic measure in some ways because that assumes that you've got no voids and actually there's no costs, which we all know is not the case. So the other measure that people often use is net yield, which is the annual gross rent less all the annual costs. So these are things like your cost of finance, so the interest costs on your mortgage, the letting fees, maintenance, insurance, and so forth. And that is a more realistic measure. Now, I tend to use gross yield as my main measure. The reason being is it's a good starting point because if your gross yield works, then the net yield kind of takes care of itself if your gross yield is high enough. And I guess the question then is, well, what is high enough? How high should your gross yield be? Certainly in terms of target gross yield, it depends partly on your finance costs and what type of investor you are and your risk profile. But for single buy-to-let, my property mentor told me that about 8% is a good starting point. And the more analysis I do on this, the more I think that's spot on. Certainly for things like HMOs, you probably want a higher yield than that, given the nature of the investment. But we'll do some analysis based on an 8% target yield. So I'm going to flip across into Excel now to show you how I build a table to analyse yield. So certainly when I start looking at investments in the market, this is the sort of analysis that I would do and hope to show you how you can replicate this for yourself as well. So let's go to Excel. So let's start with a monthly rent because that's really the starting point for calculating yield. So let's say the monthly rent was $550. So this might be a small buy-to-let property. Let's say the acquisition cost, optimistically in this market, but some places this is still the case, is say £80,000. Now I'm just going to reformat that just because I don't like the way that's come up. There we go, get rid of the decimal places and put a comma in. That's nice. So my gross yield, if I take the 550, so it equals 550, and times that, so use the star sign on Excel, by 12, and then divide that through by the purchase price, that's saying 0.0825. If I press on the percent button and expand that out a little bit, then that gives me 8.3%, so that's good. Now clearly this is just one data point. We want to be able to see a range to measure risk and look at different purchase prices and different rents per month. So what I'd probably then do is take equals that and then add 50 onto that. And then you can see I've got a little square corner. If I drag that across, I'll do another one, get to 1,000. And let's copy the formatting from that into here. And that I'm going to just merge and centre across of those. Let's draw a box around it as well to make it look tidy. And if we centre all of this, that makes it a little bit easier to read. So 8.3% is our starting point. Now I'm going to build out my purchase cost as well down the side, equals that. Let's do it in chunks of 10k. You'll probably want to do it in smaller chunks, maybe 5k for some property purchases. But let's just do 10k in this example. And then again, if I drag that down using the green square, take it down to 200k. That's a good starting point as well. So this is my purchase cost. If I do Alt and Enter, cost, I should put that on the next line. I'm just going to merge and centre that as well and put a box around it. Centre that. There we go, nice and tidy. Double click on that to make that all the same size. So this is the grid I'm looking to build out. And then, in row 5, I've got all my monthly rent. So in my formula, I'm going to put dollar in front of the 5 because I want to tell Excel that I want to fix it. I always want to pick up this row for my monthly rent. Clearly the 12 stays the same. And then as we go down the page, then I want to tell Excel that I always want it to look in column C. So I'm going to put a dollar sign in front of that, and then it knows just to always use this column for the formula and always to use this row for the formula as well. So that's my formula, and that's ready to go now. So I've got the green square here, and I can drag that across like that, and I've got the green square, and I can drag that down like that. And what it's basically done for me is calculated the yield at all those different purchase costs. So regardless of what price I'm going to pay, given the rent range that I put in, it tells me what my gross yield is now. I'm just going to draw a square around that to make it a bit tidier. Same here, just click on that square, and it'll give you the black square around the outside. And to make it a little bit easier to read, I'm just going to right click and go Format Cells, and then go Border, and then got a dotted line and just put that across the middle just to make that a bit easier to read. In fact, if I go View and get rid of the grid lines, that should be even easier. There we are, nice. So we've got a grid now of our monthly rent, which we can put in bold, and our purchase costs as well down the side here. Now, to make it easier to see where your yield is met in terms of target, what I then do generally is highlight the area that's got the formulas in, and if you go to conditional formatting, you can go to highlight cell rules, and if it's greater than let's say 7.99%, I don't want it to be red, I want it to be green because that's good if it's high, and then go OK. And there we go. So we've got a table now that shows us actually at different purchase prices what level of rent I would need to achieve to hit my 8%, and I can just follow it across. Keep in mind this purchase cost should really include all of the acquisition costs. So basically, if you know you're going to have to do a refurb, so it might be 80k to buy it, but you have to spend 20k on a refurb, you might want to use the 100k row. You might want to include things like stamp duty and conveyancing and survey costs as well, if you want to go belt and braces on making sure all your costs are captured. The nice thing about this table though is once you've built it, you can go into here. If I colour that in and colour this in to show you, I'll just make that a little bit brighter. So that's just one property, so that might be like a flat, and it could be that I might be looking at a 3-bed house instead, and I might think that actually as a minimum I'm going to get, say, £750 rent on that. Then that's going to update my table. It could be that the minimum purchase cost then might be 110,000. There you go, it's redone the table, it's recalculated the yields, and it's recoloured in my green go zone as well. So you can use that table once you've set it up for different purchases and different levels of monthly rent to look at what your risk is and what it does to your yield. Hopefully that's a useful tool for you. If you've got any questions, as always, just let me know.